Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. This week, we have a special guest. He's formerly the guitarist for Pleasure. He's currently with the Dazz Band. He's worked with legends, Frankie Beverly and Maze, The Whispers, Tony Braxton. Um, it's just a laundry list. He's a producer, he's a songwriter, he's a manager. The brother is keeping funk alive. We have Marlon, the magician. McClain, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, LeTroy. Thanks for having me. This is
Um,
awesome.
oh, it's great, it's great. So, like, just tell me about the Portland music scene. When you started out, in the '70s. Like,
Yeah.
nobody really thinks of Portland as a hotbed, but like, take us back.
Yeah, everybody used to always say that, especially when Pleasure started getting recognized outside of Portland. Like one of our first places that we became really popular in was in Philadelphia. Um, and it became a place where people just really loved the music that we were making. Everybody would say, like, wow, how are you guys from Portland? And you're making this kind of sound.
Hmm.
And it's just that Portland was an area where, a lot of migration had happened from other parts of the country. Like my uh, grandparents were from Kansas, and so they had moved out from Kansas to Portland and settled in Portland. And you had a lot of people from different areas from the South and stuff like that. And they came out there for, uh, they had Kaiser had started the shipping yards. And so a lot of black people had came out there and started working at the shipping yards. And so for us as youngsters growing up in Portland, it was awesome because we had a really, really strong community, and it's called the Albina community.
Hmm.
And it was really, like I said, we had a lot of record stores, all that type of stuff. So you kind of naturally heard music all the time. And as you know, with how can I say, music is always built around people experiencing it. So as a kid, if you hear something that you like for me in particular, I wanted to learn how to play guitar because I heard James Brown records. My mother would play James Brown records in the house, and so I asked her to get me a guitar, and she got me a guitar, and I would just be in my room learning how to kind of play like the what I heard on the records,
Hmm.
right? And so a lot of the guys in Portland were very similar. We all were majority self-taught musicians that learned from listening to records. And I would say the awesome thing about Portland and other areas in the countries like that too, everybody had homes that had basements. And so I always say for us, we stayed in the basement practicing by listening to other records, and then we got good as a band.
Uh-huh.
And then we would go out and play around. But that's really how it all happened.
Right. So talk about, I guess, the art of forming a band. So you started out with franchise, but then you merged with Soul Masters and became Pleasure. So like, just talk about
Yeah.
the separate entities and then the merging, becoming one. Like, just how the pieces, pretty much came together like that.
Yeah. Once again, like I said, Portland, is like I said, especially in the Albina area, is a very small community, so you all know each other.
Hmm.
And my first band that I started with was myself and Nathaniel Phillips, the bassist, and a drummer named Andre Billingsley, and we called ourselves Franchise, right? And so we had a little three-piece band. We rehearsed uh, in the basement, and then the Soul Master was a group that was started by Donald Hepburn, and he had most of those guys at the time were going to Mount Hood Community College, so they were a little older than we were, um, and they would be playing around at shows and stuff like that, and then they had heard about our band, and so they talked to Nate and I about joining the Soul Masters,
Hmm.
and then we included the drummer Bruce Carter, who was at the time he was like considered just a young, you know, ahead of his time drummer because he was like at 12, 13 years old, sounding like like one of the best drummers ever. So then we include him in the band. And then we were the Soul Masters for, I would say at least maybe 2 years or something, we decided once we started making demos and started getting label interest and stuff that we wanted to change the name. So we changed the name to Pleasure.
Okay. And how long did you all perform as Pleasure before you got on the radar of Wayne Henderson of the Crusaders?
Maybe we were the Soul Masters, and then I would say maybe we got our deal in 1974, so maybe like in 72, 73, we had kind of changed our name to Pleasure. And what happened was that there was a club called the Downstairs Lounge, up the Downstairs Lounge, but it really for a long while was just called the Downstairs Lounge, and we would play there all the time. We had a really, really great following at that club. But then you also had people like the Whispers would play there, and different groups would come through the Northwest and touring. They would come to those clubs and play. At one time, we had became really friends with Grover Washington, and he had came in and sat in with us and stuff like that. And he started telling people about us, and he told Wayne Henderson about us. That's how we got connected to Wayne. It was through Grover Washington.
Wow. All right. So, like with the group success, you had singles like Glide, which most people know you all for, um, Joyous,
Yeah.
Bouncy Lady, which I have a question for you about that momentarily. But
Okay.
the song that gravitated, because obviously, um, I'm a hip hop head, so a lot of my discovery of music from the 60s and 70s comes from samples, from hip hop sampling. Um, Thoughts of Old Flame,
Yeah.
U- UGK, and Question Mark Asylum, and then that's how I discovered you all.
Okay.
And and
Wow.
I and I love the song. Like it kind of had like a happy go lucky feel towards thinking about your exes.
Right. Right. That was a Donald Hepburn's uh composed record song. And Donald, I'd say, was more of the um as a songwriter, he was more of the jazzy yet soulful
Hmm.
fusion of the band, right? And he always had those kind of ideas in his head. He wrote that song. He wrote Thoughts of a Flame. He also wrote Theme for the Moonchild. He also wrote a song called Get Us in the Mind, which is one of my favorite Pleasure songs.
Hmm.
And he always had this way of crafting, like I said, things that were going. Like I said, I wouldn't say that we were in the ghetto in Portland, but we're in a community that was like a ghetto. If I'm trying to make the picture of it correctly, and so Donald always kind of would take his experiences and turn them into songs. So in other words, so that is based on a true experience,
Uh-huh.
right? And where he wanted to still be close with a person, even though they weren't together.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Same with
So
Bouncy Lady. He wrote Bouncy Lady too.
okay. So let me
Yeah.
ask you. The thought that I had about Bouncy Lady when I hear Bouncy Lady, I hear Go Go.
Okay.
Like, was there a connection? Were you all on the
I
West
would
Coast in tune with Go Go? Like,
no, no, we weren't. That was just more of how can I say it, for us as a band, we always just kind of had this way of putting different styles together, and not necessarily from how can I say it, from trying to take somebody's style,
uh
right?
huh.
It was just the nature of, once again, us being in Portland and us listening to, whether buying records that we liked or maybe listening to stuff on radio, on FM radio, that kind of stuff. And we'd always come together. And we were just a really big fusion band.
Hmm.
Um, so yes, I wouldn't say that the go-go was popular to us at that particular time. In fact, for us coming up, obviously some of our biggest influences were, uh, Earth, Wind and Fire, you know, Tower Power, Dyke and the Blazers. uh, obviously James Brown, all that kind of stuff. Miles Davis, like I said, Donald and those guys are really big Miles Davis fans, so they kind of incorporated their feelings of that into our sound.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, but I think we kind of discovered go-go maybe much later.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was asking it more so to the fact that maybe you predated go-go, and
Right, right.
go-go might have been inspired by the song itself. So,
That's funny. I never thought about that, but yeah,
because even thinking about the title "Bouncy Lady," like you could be like, yeah, this is
yeah.
something
The
that would work.
the song was actually written about this girl in part. Her name was Patsy Andrews, who was a big fan of the band that always came around to most of all our shows. And
Hmm.
I think Donald just kind of liked her attitude and style of how she was as a person, and so he wrote that song about her.
Right. Now, another song that my mom was in the club to was "Glide."
Yeah, that's like the anthem for the band.
Okay,
Yeah, and
tell me about.
that song was written by Nate Phillips, the bassist.
Uh-huh.
He wrote the main music of it, and then Bruce Smith wrote the lyrics along with Nate. Um, and to me, that song that still makes it incredible, in my opinion, is that even when you hear it today, you say, "Wow, how in the heck did he come up with the way he's playing what he's playing?"
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because it's also it's technical, but yet it's very soulful too, and it's hard to do. Like whenever somebody no whenever I meet somebody and they know that I was in place, they always say, "Wow, dude, how did Nate come up with that bass line?"
Right. Well, from your position, you're in a group, and
Yeah.
somebody creatively goes there. Like, does that up the ante for you to feel like I have to? It's my responsibility as a guitarist to match that level, or not disappoint on my end.
Well, we were the kind of band that, like I said, for us, how we were as a band, we always looked at ourselves as trying to support the music, trying to support whoever brought a song that we were going to do. We all, like I said, try to be a part of it.
Hmm.
And so it was Nate's idea, but then if you listen to the whole body of the song itself, it's a complete thought because everybody in the band doing all their, like I said, uh, special sauce to make it what it turned out to be. See,
Right.
I always look at bands, and even though you might have a few people, same as like Earth, Wind and Fire, Maurice White was the leader, and kind of like the thought of it. But it's when you hear music, it's the combination of everybody adding that soul, that energy, that spirit that makes it sound incredible.
Yeah.
Right? So it ain't just Maurice, it's all of them that man when they went in the studio and started working on that songs, like Al McKay, the way he stroked that part on September. You see what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
all of it that made those ingredients that makes it a great song. So with Glide, it's the same thing. In other words, Nate brought it to the band and we started practicing it before we went to the studio to record it. But when you hear it, we played that song down from the start to finish. That's what that is.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So all the parts that you're hearing, it's like all of it together that makes it really special, including his incredible bass line.
Hmm. Like, with a song as successful as "Glide," like how difficult is it to, um, I guess, not duplicate that same sound, but also maintain that level of success?
Um, I think it's how can I say it's kind of easier for a band like Pleasure, and I'm not talking about from the success part of it. I'm just talking about the part of if you look at the band's trajectory from the start of our first record, um, dust stuff all the way up till we have made that Future Now record. You hear the part of the band itself, what I consider getting better, because we started off as rookies,
Hmm.
and Wayne Henderson took us in as a mentor, and showed us how to be in the studio, taught us how to get our sound, showed us, gave us advice on, song selection, how to make your songs better. So if you really you look at the start of us to where we got to the Glide record, you just hear the part of the band evolving over time. And so I think that once you get there, that's what you try to do in general. You just try to keep getting better and better as far as putting out good music.
Mhm.
I guess my point is with that, we never, as a band, we never looked at it as, hey, we're trying to, make hit records per se. We were a band that was a certain kind of a band that was, a combination of R&B, jazz, rock, fusion, kind of all mixed together. So we always looked at it like, hey, let's go to the studio and just make some great songs that reflect what the band is about.
Right. Do you feel like the band gets its just due?
I think if the band would have, because I left the band after the Future Now, well, r- not right after the Future Now record. After the Future Now record, I left the band and I started producing other people and stuff like that. I think if the band would have stayed together and kept our focus, um, that we would have eventually gotten a really, really, like I said, we're like a cult band right now. People
Mhm.
know us, but like everybody don't know us. But the people that know us are really into our body of work.
Right.
Saying if we would have stayed together, we would have just kept building on that, right? And we just would have gotten bigger and bigger over time.
Yeah. So, like, just give us a run through of some of the work that you did immediately after Pleasure. I guess before officially
Yeah,
becoming a member of Dazz Band.
yeah. Before I joined the Dazz Band, I was working with people like Jeff Lorber. I helped Jeff Lorber get his deal with Arista. Um, I work with New Shoes, like songs like I Can't Wait, Point of No Return. I produced that. Um, for a period there, almost everything that came out of Portland, the Northwest, that was had some kind of success with, I was involved with in some kind of way. And then with Wayne, I got to work with, people like Ronnie Laws and almost everything that he was involved with, I I worked with. And then I went on to uh, write songs with Tower Power and worked on Maurice White's solo record. Uh, did all that kind of stuff. In fact, how I got with the Dazz Band was I had moved to LA to work on Maurice White's solo album, and I got a call from no, I didn't get a call. I actually called Reggie Andrews, who was the producer of the Dazz Band. Him and I have always been were good friends. So I called him up to see what studio sessions he might have. And he goes, well, Martin, I don't have any sessions right now, but I want you to call this number. And so he had me call Bobby Harris, the leader of the Dazz Band. And at that time, the guitarist had just left the band. And so I'm on the phone with Bob, and Bobby goes, well, Marlon, I know who you are. Do you want to join the band? So I had moved to LA and went from LA to Cleveland all inside of like a week. It was crazy. And that's how I joined the Dazz Band in 1984.
Wow. So, like with a group like that, that's been hugely successful, and you're the new kid on the block, per se. Like, just talk about adjusting to being in Dazz Band compared to your experience with Pleasure. Like, was it pretty much seamless, or um, you had to pretty much find your way within that group?
No, I would say that first of all they were awesome guys, and so same thing they were the Dazz Band, even though they were more successful far as making the type of hits that they were making, like Joystick and Leather Weapon, all that kind of stuff. They came from a fusion band.
Hmm.
Like the leader of the band, Bobby, he's like a jazz enthusiast and plays sax, and all the guys in the band were really more um, jazz fusion guys that wanted to have success as a band. So they, were making along with Reggie, trying their best to make really successful R&B songs. And so that's what they did. And so it was easy integrating because they're great guys. And I always talk about this too. The thing about, I call it, Ohio. There's something in the water that I say in Ohio, because you have all these funk bands that are from Ohio. Whether you talk about Roger and Zapp, whether you talk about Midnight Star, you just have this thing, and I always say there's something in the water that
Yeah.
makes them sound that way, right? It's funny, but it's crazy, right? So
Ohio
yeah, so
Players, Slave.
correct.
Yep.
Phaso, the
Mhm.
keyboard player in the Dazz Band, Keith Harrison, he was from Phaso. So yeah, there's something in the water there. So I actually enjoyed the part of being around, that type of mentality, that type of music, right?
Uh-huh.
Because once again, it just helps you grow by being around other styles of music.
Right. Um, like I said, the sample head in me, uh, Big X the plug, sampling Whip It.
Oh, crazy, right?
Uh-huh.
Come
Have
on, man.
have you all performed with him?
No, I actually tried to hit him up to say, "Hey, man, first of all, it's awesome how he did it,
Mhm.
right?" So I sent him a message on when it first happened. I think I sent him a message on Instagram or something, but he's never replied to me. But anyway, I just thought it was amazing how he put it together, and the record just went berserk, right?
Yeah.
And so it really, for the band, it exposed new people to the Dazz Band based on how he had put that together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So I like the way this conversation is going as far as like I can just throw out something and you kind of have a story for it. So I kind of want to continue down that lane for a while. Um like with Maze and Frankie Beverly, like what did you do with them?
Well, obviously, the early days I've known we met Frankie as we were coming up with Pleasure, so we'd always work on stuff together. Um, I don't think any of the stuff that I did with Frankie did not come out. So, but we did work on some songs together.
Mhm.
Awesome, obviously super talented. God, he was always amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at them as like our underground kings. Like
Oh, no question.
they're within our community, we hold them to the highest regard. But he just always seemed to be so cool in his element that he didn't care about mainstream success, and he just enjoyed going to festivals and performing in the all white and putting on a show. So,
Right. Yeah, the crazy part was literally just like you were saying. He was always like that. I always called them uh Maze like the Grateful Dead of our community, right? Because
mhm,
if you're into the Grateful Dead, which I got to see a lot of their shows coming because we're from the Bay Area, and we were signed to Fantasy Records, so we got to know all those people really early while they were getting really big. And that is, that whole part of just making music that's from your heart and soul, and having the community just really be with you, right?
right.
And so, like you said, Frankie did not have to have a current hit record on the radio for his fans to always come to all his shows and be about the experience of what Frankie Beverly Maze was about, right?
Hmm.
And so that's what made them so incredible.
Yeah. Um, the Whispers. Um, we had Walter on the show on the Good Old Boys about 15 years ago. So he's near and dear to us. Um, but I just love the way that their sound was able to kind of transition with the times. Like
Right,
how they started out in the 60s, and then the late 70s they could do And the Beat Goes On, and then in the 80s they can link up with Face and make like Rock Steady, and then they'd still have all of the ballads like In the Mood, and then
right.
the Christmas albums. Like, talk about your experiences working with the Whispers.
Yeah, well, same thing is that we got to meet those guys really, really early. Uh, as Pleasure was becoming Pleasure, they would same thing, perform at the up the downstairs lounge, and so we got to know all those guys really early, and then we, obviously we got to um, do some shows with them. I got to get to play on some of their records. And those guys were just incredible guys. Golly. You know, like you said, it was really awesome. It's really cool to see that part of how they're able to navigate, you know, the business in the way that they did it
Mhm.
because, you know, they were obviously incredible vocalists, you know, singing a certain type of style that you would think that they could only, how can I say, be set in one era.
Yeah.
But they were able to, you know, based on them thinking about how to do it, how to just keep staying current with what they were doing. And the vocals were always amazing, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so really really good guys, really really good people.
What's your key to, like, navigating the eras and staying current?
My key is I've always looked at music like I am just thankful. And in a lot of ways I'm a fan that happens to be a musician, right? So I'm a fan of music.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is I love all types of music. I like listening to all types of music. I like discovering music. I'm really thankful that I have, you know, some uh daughters that will turn me on to new stuff. Like I have my one daughter Celeste, who's my youngest, will always let me know, like, hey dad, you should check this out. Right. And
Who
so
does she
because
have
of
you
that,
listening to right now?
I mean, a little bit of everything. That's the thing. Like, in other words, she had me listening to Olivia Dean before Olivia Dean became successful.
Wow.
So, and it's a little bit of everything because, you know, she's what I would call the typical uh Spotify subscriber.
Mhm.
So in other words, she's been a subscriber to Spotify for a long time. So she always is she's like a premium listener, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so she's always listening to things and she'll just discover stuff that she likes way before it might be become successful. And that's the part I like. That's the one thing I actually like about, how can I say, about the era that we're in a lot of ways, it reminds me of when our era of FM radio, right? And to me, FM radio for us was one of the best eras. Why? Because people were listening to albums and album cuts, and that's how you really discovered people that you really liked, right?
Uh-huh.
It wasn't necessarily that you were listening to top 40 radio, you were listening to the FM station and you found those inner cuts that you thought were awesome that made you like that artist. So in a lot of ways, to me, streaming does that for the younger generation, right? Like listen for my daughter in particular, because she literally has turned me on to so much music that becomes successful based on her taste. And she said, hey dad, check this out, right? The next thing I know, that the artist, maybe it might be 2 years later or something, but that artist is popping off.
Yeah, taking off. Oh. Um, Norman Connors, another person that I feel is, has, I'd say, quietly just put together a hell of a discography. Did you work on You Are My Starship and Invitation?
Well, no, with You Are My Starship, we did the Dazz Band did our own version of You Are My Starship. That's how we were connected to that, to
Oh, okay.
Norman Connors. We did a version on our I want to say it was a Streets Life album, but that might not be the name of the album. And we did our version, and it became, we had a remix done over in the UK and became really successful over in the UK.
Mhm.
And we had talked to Michael Henderson when we had first got it together. We were on this call with him, and he was giving us some advice and stuff about how what the chords and stuff were. Because when you really listen to the song, how it's structured is real different, right?
Uh-huh.
The chord structure of it, and he was giving us some tips on it, and it was awesome.
Right.
But that's how we're really connected to Norman Connors, was
Okay.
through You Are My Starship.
Okay. Um, and you worked with J-Lo?
Well, I work with J Lo from the aspect of I have a producer uh that I manage. His name is Keith Hetrick,
Uh-huh.
and he's written a couple songs for J Lo.
Okay.
So I never worked with her as far as me actually playing on her record or anything like that. But as a manager, I've worked with her.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna say I went through your link tree which was a long tree.
Oh yeah, oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah. I understand. I
And
understand.
I saw the J Lo song, and I was like, "What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Crazy."
My guy Keith Hetrick did that song.
Oh, okay,
He produced that song,
nice.
and that's the other part that I'm really thankful for. You know, I love being on the. You know, obviously I'm connected as a artist or a songwriter, but I love being on the behind the scenes part of working with whether it's producers, songwriters, or up and coming artists to try to help get them going, right? And so, you know, besides Keith Hedrick, I work with some guys over in the UK called the Beat Freaks.
Hmm.
They are amazing brothers, two brothers from Nigeria that have settled in the UK who are awesome. And they're into this kind of hip hop, uh, grime music, and they've created their own scene over in London. And I'm like one of their biggest fans. Like so I'm into stuff like that, and they're doing really well. We have a song that they're a part of called Prada. That's uh, over being streams that has Ray and D Block Union on it, Europe on it. So that's doing great. And then I have my son who goes by the name of Brando. He's Marlon McClain II. He does really well in the dance space. Has a song called Body that's done over billion streams with this group called Loud Luxury. So I kind of help him with his career. And then I have some up and coming artists that I'm involved with. One is his name is OBA, who I think is super talented songwriter. A kid is by the name of Nines is over in the UK too, who's more in the he's a hip hop writer, but he's also in a certain type of EDM space.
Hmm.
So that, and I have this young girl, her name is Jaden Hurst, who writes really alternative pop songs that I'm really excited about.
Oh wow.
Dr. Todd McClain provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338 or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
Yeah, because before researching for this interview, I thought you only worked with the legends.
No. I've always seen even in the era of the days of pleasure. So like that's how I got involved with Jeff Lorber and Kenny G and all that stuff and New Shoes. I've always like I said, I'm a lover of music,
Uh huh.
and so I've always tried to do other things and just be into what I'm doing because I just love music. So I happen to be lucky that a lot of people will say, "Hey, Marlon, you know, what do you think about this? Will you go in the studio with me? You know, will you help me get it together?" And you know, that's my career has been like that all since I've started.
Yeah. Um. Obviously, like funk, as we knew it, sort of, um, kind of faded away. Like as we went into like New Jack Swing and hip hop. But you came up with the United We Funk project. Like, what was the mindset behind gathering some of our legends like Rick James and Roger Troutman, SOS
Yeah,
Band, Confunction, Barkays, and others?
yeah, that really was the brainchild of the leader of the Dazz Band, Bobby Harris, and he had that idea of all of us being in one big huge group together and being able to go out and tour and make it all make sense and also make records together. So we were really super fortunate. In 1999, when we first started the project, we found this guy. His name is Bo Bavard, who was a guy who was successful in the software business that liked the concept, and so he totally backed Bobby's idea, and we were able to put that whole thing together. The United We Funk, and originally we had it. It was going to be along with not only um, Rick James was a part of it, Roger was a part of it, and so was the guys from the system, as well as all the other guys you had mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, Confunction, SOS Band, Charlie Wilson, Barkays, and it was incredible. And we are going to tour all of it together. And unfortunately, you know, Rick James got sick, so he couldn't be a part of it. And Roger, unfortunately, was shot and killed by his brother, so he couldn't go out and be a part of it. But the whole plan was for all of us to be together. And we actually went out and we out and went and toured it. We had Tom Joyner, who was kind of like obviously really close to all the guys, and he became like almost like our pseudo spokesman. He went out on some of the dates with us, and we just really exposed that part of those funk legends coming together in under one group, performing their hits. And the part that we were all just, in fact, just together, not all of us, but we were in Dallas together on Friday, and it was now Larry Dotson's doing this called the Masters of Funk. But on that show that we did in Dallas, it was Brick, Dazz Band, Lakeside, Confunction, Barcades, and the Commodores, all on one show. And the major part about when you hear that music together, all back to back, it just makes you feel a certain way, because you just being hit over the head by the music, right? And in our case, when we had United We Funk, what made it so incredible was that we literally was just one band playing all the hits together. So there was never a set change. It was just the leaders of the band would come out and sing their hits. So in other words, you'd have the part of Confunction would come out, do their thing with the one band behind them, Dazz Band, and Charlie Wilson would come out and do his thing. Then we'd all end the set together as one big, huge band. So the sound of it was it was like a locomotive just hitting you on the head, because you had all this power on stage of maybe 3 or 4 guitar players, 2 bass players. It was just a part of it was like a wall of funk, right? And hearing these great songs that you love and seeing those artists that you love all together, gelling together as one big, huge group, right?
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, like I was telling Abdul Rauf when I talked to him several weeks ago, my wife and my mom and I caught a show in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, about four years ago, I think, that included Dazz Band, Midnight Star, SOS Band, Lakeside, Brick, and like you said, it was like 5 hours of just nonstop, and Cameo as well. Can't forget Cameo.
Right.
5 hours just nonstop, like sweating, dancing the whole night, and it punctuated, that era to me, as far as like just good times, no care in the world, just perfect. So, I'm glad that we continue to see you all, and you all are still performing as if it's like 1981, 82 all over again.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, and it's an actual awesome feeling for the fans, because just like you're saying, the fans have that reaction to it. I think we're all connected to certain parts of our lives that feel really special, right? And you have those songs that you're linked to, whatever it is, whatever that song is, right? And so when you hear it, that makes you have a certain feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And so you really feel and see that when those songs connect with the fans. So it's awesome.
What's like one song, and I know it's going to be tough because they're all your babies, that is like synonymous with Marlon McClain? Like, this is the one song that I want to be remembered for.
Oh man, that's too crazy, man. That's that's crazy. That's a hard one. Only because there's just a lot of songs, a lot of artists.
Yeah. What's the
Right?
first song that pops into your head then?
You know what? I always think of, for some reason, whenever somebody asks you that question, I just always think of Jeff Lorber. And the reason why I say that is because Jeff was one of the first guys that when I started producing, him and I just really gravitated to each other. And the thing about Jeff was always just a very organic kind of artist that just loved playing. So in other words, you could go see him. You could go see him at any of the kind of like local clubs, and he just being there doing his thing. So when him and I started working together, I would just go and just sit and just hear him jam and stuff. And then when we go into the studio and just lay down his music. And so I was so, how can I say, I was so happy that he became successful. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't the typical person that you would have thought would have became successful as he became. Because Jeff became at one point he was considered like, the godfather of smooth jazz. Before all that, he was just in the clubs, just playing his thing. He had moved out from Philadelphia, and Jeff, I always call him Dr. Lorber because he's in a lot of ways he's like a brainiac, and he can just really he took the part of making his style of jazz that in a lot of ways seemed kind of technical to really organic and feel really just really soulful, right? So to me, he's one of those other guys. If you check it out, those early records he gets sampled a lot,
Yeah.
right? He gets sampled a lot. So he always, for some reason, he always comes to mind is just Jeff Lorber songs in general.
So I should have asked you about this when we were talking about pleasure. Like, what were your thoughts about sampling? Like hearing Public Enemy or DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince or UGK
Right.
recreating your stuff. Like, what was your first reaction? Are you the type that's like, I understand why they use this part of the song, the bridge, but they probably should have used this part instead? Like, are you like meticulous and nitpicky, or you just love it all?
No, you see, to me, the thing with sampling is that you always just say, hey, the person obviously likes what you did. And so they're taking that and creating something new with it, right? I'll say the first time that we got into, we obviously Pleasure was kind of sampled early, but the first time where it really was impactful for me personally was my wife and I went to the movies, and we went to the Kid and Play movie.
House Party.
Yeah, and they played it. And we didn't, and at that time we didn't know. Because it's not like now you get the sample clearance, all that stuff. It's like, our manager didn't know. So literally we were in there watching the movie, and all of a sudden it comes on. And I went and called our manager afterwards, like, you're not gonna believe this. I'm sitting there listening to Pleasure in the movie. Like, what in the heck, right? And we wound up, and he wound up, he had to call Motown and everything, and we got it all worked out, but because it wasn't cleared. But you had the reaction of it being like, wow, that's awesome. Like, man, how cool is that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's good. Talk about the solo work, like TBC and Funky Fridays. Like how you put a modern twist on funk here in the 2000s.
Yeah, once again, if I say one great thing about the internet and Facebook, and obviously now it's gone from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok, but with Facebook, I always liked the part of when people were, whether they were doing their Facebook Live or just posting stuff on Facebook. So, I've always, when I'm at in my little office home studio, I love just picking up my guitar and just playing, right? And so whatever comes out, that's what comes out. So I started saying to myself, you know what? I'm gonna turn this into something on Friday. I'm just gonna pick it up and play it, and whatever happens, I'm just gonna post it. So it became Funky Fridays, right? And my whole thing was just the part of, how can I say, just letting stuff out. I believe music is like that. You just gotta let it out, and whatever it is, that's what that is. And so I started getting such a positive reaction to it. I said, you know what? Maybe I should take some of this stuff and actually turn it into songs. Right. So that's how that really happened with me actually making the records, was that I was getting these positive reactions from people. Say, oh man, I like that groove, or I like that lick, I like this, or whatever they would say. So I said, well, let me focus on it and turn those ideas into songs. And then I would get stuff like, one time Bootsy hit me up and say, Marlon, I like that lick you played, man. Send that to me. So, that would turn into a song. It just turned into like a real way of me letting stuff out that I thought was funky
Mm-hmm.
and turn it into a thing that, like I say, I'm glad that it's current and not just considered just straight old school, but it's really just all about feeling. Just like it's I'm just playing what I feel when I wake up.
Right. What's something about you that people would find most surprising?
Well, I would say that in a lot of ways, even though I'm in a business where, you have to be really communicative, I'm actually kind of quiet and shy.
Uh-huh.
And I know it sounds kind of weird, but I'm more of a thinker than I am a person that likes to. Like I said, I like being behind the scenes opposed to being in front,
Yeah.
right? But you're in a business where you do have to try to let people know that you're there. So I try to communicate, but I'm really more of a inner thinker type of a person.
Uh-huh. And that doesn't surprise me because like throughout communication for the Abdul Rauf interview, I just started, digging deeper into you, and I was like, what? I was like, I need to be interviewing Marlon as well. And then
Right,
when I had messaged you about it, I almost got the sense of like wow, he did his homework. He looked into my background, and he wants to talk to me because you wasn't gonna say anything. We would have just
no,
finished that SOS band communication, and that would have been the end of it. But I was like, I
right,
was like,
right.
you have a lot of history, and then you're connected to a lot of people. So I'm gonna stay in touch with you.
Yeah, you're right. I mean that is my personality. Like I work with SOS Band and Ralph is literally like a brother to me. So
Yeah,
so yeah, so you're right. I'm more into that kind of stuff than talking about myself.
right. I'm the same way. I'd rather just help other people and enjoy my peace and quiet sitting out back by the pool
Right, right.
instead of
Exactly, right?
instead of having to be out and moving and shaking nonstop. I totally get that. So like what's next? I know you mentioned you got the artist that you're working behind the scenes with, but um I'm sure you got tour dates,
Yeah,
as well.
the Dazz Band's out doing shows right now, and then actually, hopefully we'll have some new music from the Dazz Band coming up pretty soon. But Bobby has some things he's working on in the studio, and so we'll get all that together. Then I have a song that I've uh, put together called "Feels Right" that's going to be coming out on the 24th. And I'm doing that with his name is Alvin Frazier. Alvin is also a part of the Dazz Band, awesome vocalist from Cleveland. So I'll send that to you. It's awesome song that I wrote a little bit with my guy. His name is Wiley Morris, a very talented producer from Atlanta. Um, so I'm really excited about that because it's not necessarily a funk song, but it's an awesome song. It's uh, more of a urban R&B song
Mhm.
that I worked on with Wiley. We got Alvin to sing, and it's a great song. So I'm real excited about that. And
Cool.
then I'm in the process of working on another Funky Fridays. For me, it just takes a minute for me to get it all going, but I'm in the process of doing that.
Right. How did you get the nickname the magician?
That came from Donald Hepburn. Um, and for some reason, I don't know, he just thought when we worked on songs and stuff like that, how I played guitar was just magical to him. So he started calling me the magician, and the nickname stuck. But it came from Donald Hepburn.
Okay. Cool. All right, so like plug away how we can find you on socials. I know you got the YouTube channel, Funky Fridays.
Yeah,
Um,
Funky Fridays. You obviously can get me on Instagram. I'm there, Macman Music. They're on Facebook, Macman Music. Same with TikTok. And I kind of like I said, it kind of goes along with how I look at things, and opposed to just being Marlon is the reason why it's Magma Music, because I use that as my company to be involved with other people. So usually, if you see myself, I may be promoting something I'm doing, but I'm really promoting other people that I'm involved with because I really like that part of how I see music and being involved with stuff.
Right. All right. So before we close, if you have a parting shot, feel free to leave us with one.
In regards to,
well, like, let's see. Let me think of one here. Like how music has changed your life. Like, so take us back to like you as a kid having this dream and where we are now.
yeah, I would say it's still the same for me as it's been for many, many years, and that is I wake up and just say that I'm thankful because I'd asked my mom to get me a guitar when I was 12, and I'll be 71 in August. So only thing I've done is music my entire life, and I've been able to put my kids through college, all that stuff that a parent likes to do, to say that you've helped folks out, and I've helped a lot of people make music and put out, projects, all that stuff. And every day I wake up, I just say I'm thankful. I'm thankful that God has given me the ability to do that, right? Because it's a gift, right? Whatever all the things that we do are gifts, right? Just like what
Mhm.
you're doing right now, it's a gift, right? And so, um, I just have to rely on that part of it. Is just being thankful for the gift that I'm able to do something that makes other people feel good, and it will be around for a long time. It'll be around forever. And we didn't get a chance to really talk about this, but one of the other artists I'm involved with, who I just love like a brother, his name is Tim Bowman, smooth jazz guitarist. Same thing, guy. This guy is just incredible,
Mhm.
incredible guitarist. And like I said, once again, it just all comes from his gift of the Lord, right?
Right.
And him and I just doing so many amazing things together. Literally had like over 18 number one songs at smooth jazz, and we're doing some things right now that's just going to be incredible in regards to him owning all his music and all that kind of stuff, and just having a catalog of things that's going to be around forever. And so I'm just really thankful that I'm able to do that, that I'm able to wake up every morning and just think about being involved with people creating and making music.
Right. Well, I mean, like you exude the love of music, the love of um making sure that future generations continue, to um make sure this house is solidified. And thank you for all your contributions and for not only keeping funk alive but keeping it magical.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Thank you, LeTroy. Thanks for having me on your show.
all right, it's a pleasure. So, like you said, Funky Fridays Volume 3. Be on the lookout for it. Catch him on tour with the Dazz Band. Like we said, it's a show. It's gonna be like a lineup of legendary artists just making you sweat, dance nonstop for hours. So, be on the lookout as well. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.